Bankruptcy, divorce laws, disability, probate, there are so many classes on the path to practicing law. Unfortunately, most schools fail to instruct you on the business of law. This is Solo De Facto, a show dedicated to discovering the success secrets that exist in the reality of running a solo practice. My goal is to find the one thing that separates each guest from the rest to give you practical solutions to create a thriving firm. Solo De Facto is sponsored by Back Office Betties, trusted virtual legal receptionist.
Welcome, everyone, to another great episode of Solo De Facto. I'm your host, Tom Dufton, and I'm here with a caring person. He's an expert in many different areas of the law. He's a partner at Antanavage Farbiarz. I'm here with Russell Farbiarz. Russell, how are you today?
Great. How are you today, Tom?
I'm doing great. So we're just going to hop into the deep end of the pool here. We're going to go right for it. What's the one thing you wish attorneys knew about running a successful law firm?
The one thing is that running a law firm is running a business. I think as lawyers, we don't get a lot of training in business in law school, and we are told that we are part of a profession, and we are part of a profession. But the other part that we're told is that because we're part of this profession, that we are somehow special, which maybe we are, but we are then exempt from the normal rigors of running a business. And I see that most law firms don't hold themselves out as a business, don't make decisions the way a business would, and that leads to a lot of heartache, a lot of law firm failures, a lot of general misery that can affect a lot of solo or small practitioners.
Now, why do you see this as such a major issue?
Because so as lawyers, we want to go and be a lawyer. We want to practice our craft, but you can't practice your craft if you can't get clients, you can't pay your overhead, and if you can't make smart decisions. You can't take everyone who comes in the door, because not every client's going to be profitable. You have to know exactly what your focus is, where you want your business to go, who you want to serve, and what you want to do.
Now, that is such a great point there. And I think a lot of people just kind of get caught up in the everyday of not realizing that it's actually a business at the end of the day. And now, why is that such a thing for students at law school? They think they're not really taught the business aspect of it. So now when they really get into this, it's a bit of a struggle.
So law school is all about teaching and learning a particular way of thinking, and that would be a very analytical thought process. So we're in law school, we're really taught to think like a lawyer. I remember when I was in law school, we had this. There was this joke, and I'm sure everyone who's a lawyer has probably heard this. At the end of the first year, you say that you're 1/3 lawyer, 2/3 human, and by the end of your third year, of course, you are now fully lawyer and no parts human. But it sort of illustrates that you go through this transformation in the way that you think and approach the world. You don't isolate it just to when you're being a lawyer. I mean, you sort of develop this different way of thinking about things, and that's really critically important. But if they took some of the time that they spent in law school teaching us how to use citations and use what's called the Blue Book, and took some of that time and actually taught us, how do you talk to clients? How do you create a business plan? How do you manage a staff? How do you market? Those would all be helpful tools as well, and probably more practical than Blue Book citation, because I can tell you I can't remember the last time I took out my Blue Book and needed to do a citation.
No, I think that's one thing that it becomes a reoccurring issue there is a lot of the personality. People feel like they're often have to be stuffy, uptight, suit and tie, and that seems like that's kind of a way of the past now. So if you want
Mhm.
to talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, I absolutely agree with that, and I have always tried not to be the stuffy lawyer, and I've had a lot of clients who have said to me that they feel comfortable talking to me because I don't feel it doesn't feel like they're talking to a lawyer, you know, and I think that it's important to have a personality and to have your personality be part of your practice and your experience with clients. Uh, you know, Sometimes I think, you can even go down to the way we dress. It while it's important to look professional, sometimes if you take off the jacket and the tie, your clients are going to be more comfortable. I practice where I practice primarily is in a farming community, in southeastern Pennsylvania. My clients come in and they might be wearing overalls. They might be wearing, maybe they're wearing a button-down shirt, maybe they're not. You know, they when they see me without a jacket and a tie on, like it's significant to them. They comment on it, and not in a negative way. And I think that sometimes it just makes, being a real person, and it allows you also to empathize with your clients and connect with them on a more emotional level.
Now, I think that's something that's really key in not just this business, but any business really, is being able to empathize with your clients. And that's just such a massive struggle for people in general because I feel like the personality is kind of hard to come through there. And is that something that happens a lot in law school and starting off as a lawyer too? Is you feel like the personality has to be tamped down?
Um, well, if it was supposed to be, I didn't do it. uh, I think that if you want to be, truly in like a corporate law setting, you want to be, you know, to a certain extent in the judicial setting. And I say that because judges have personalities too. I mean, and they may not always come out directly when you're in court, but you know, our personalities govern a lot of how we approach the world. And if we just try to sort of stuff that down and ignore it, you're not going to seem authentic. And clients pick up on that. They don't like inauthenticity. So,
I know. I always struggle with that one too.
little tongue twister here.
Oh, I know. It's one of those days. It's a Friday and it's snowing. So
Yes.
now it seems like that's a big common misconception there. And is that part of what are some of the other common misconceptions in the area of in the business area of law that you're passionate about?
Have a plan. Know what you want to do. And I'll say I'm guilty as anyone else of not really getting this, you know, really until a couple of years ago, and a lot of it is due to some coaching that I've had through the lawyerist program, but it really helps sort of frame your thinking to realize, number one, you can't be everything to everyone, and you need to have a plan about what you want to do and how you're going to get there. You know, so that you can go into each day and make your business and your practice 1% better.
I love that. The 1% better. And I feel like a lot of people think that they have to be Superman in a sense. They have to be experts at everything. Now, that's something that just kind of needs to be put away too. So if you want to talk about that as well.
Well, I have to credit Stephanie Everett at Lawyerist with that phrase, because that's not my phrase, but that's something that gets taught in the Lawyerist program is you can't do everything in one day. And you think about the phrase Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, neither was your business and neither was your practice. But if you can just do one thing, two things, three things in a day that make you 1% better, then you've succeeded. And you have to realize that when you start putting all of those 1% betters together, all of a sudden you have transformed your business.
Now that's something too that people feel like they just have to get it right off the bat. Mistakes happen, growing pains along the way, and that's kind of part of the process in a lot of this, isn't it?
It is. And you know, another lesson that I've learned is that it's okay to be wrong, because you might decide, I want to do X in my business, and you might try really, really hard to make X happen, and if X doesn't get any traction, then you might decide that it's okay to decide that you're not going to do X anymore.
Now that's something that I feel like all the time people just feel like they have to be okay, perfect at this, perfect at this, perfect at that. And this is my path. I will not deviate from the path. But
Mhm.
deviations are kind of the whole point. You have to
Right.
find out what you're good at, what you're not good at. And that's just something that comes with time in a lot of this. And I feel like patience is a big thing in this. Is that right?
Yes, you have to be able to play the long game. And I can tell you, I am not great at playing the long game. I've tried to get a lot better at it, but you have to be able to say, okay, I want to get here. I'm not going to get here today. I'm not going to get here tomorrow, but maybe I'm going to get there in a month, 2 months, 3 months, and be able to do the things that you need to do to get there. Because you don't necessarily have the luxury to spend 40 hours a week improving your business, because you also have to service your clients.
So now we talked about some of the misconceptions there and talked about things that you're really good at there. But let's take it to another direction here. What are one or two things that you find most challenging or that you're struggling
Only one or two.
with? I know we don't want to get too negative with it. So
I mean, I sometimes I feel like I have undiagnosed ADD, because I go in so many different directions, and sometimes the focus can be a challenge. Is just and I've been working really, really hard to try to stay focused on, okay, this is what I said was the priority for this quarter. We're going to do this, this other thing that seems like a bright and shiny object, because I suffer from shiny object syndrome. I'm always like, oh, well, look at that shiny thing over there. Let's look at that. Like, I think setting quarterly goals has really been helpful to me in terms of trying to just stay as close to on task as possible.
no, I feel like that's a great way to do it because if you set it quarterly, you give yourself time to accomplish these goals and then you can reflect and say, hey, did I get that done? Did I not get that done? What steps do I need to take to get that done?
Right.
And now, what excites you about the future?
You know what I find really exciting is that, as we're moving out of, hopefully, knock on wood, the acute phase of the pandemic, is that we have all learned that the world is not as big as we thought it was. So, and what I mean by that is, I don't have to just rely rely on clients that are within, say, 30 miles of my office. I can work with clients, all across the state, in other states, because I'm licensed in other states. I can, I can reach broader audiences through tools such as this, such as podcasts, and such as, YouTube and whatnot. And it just seems like there are just so many more opportunities, to reach people. There's also more opportunities for things like, for like hiring. Like, my most recent hire was actually a paralegal who lives, in Iowa. And you can really find great talent out there if you don't limit yourself to the 30-mile radius around your office.
I feel like that's been such a great part of, feels weird to say great part of the pandemic, but
I know.
all the access to technology has just been unbelievable with all this. I mean,
Right.
we're doing Zoom now. Everyone can Zoom into work and all that great technology there. So what are some other technologies that you're using to help you with that?
So I mean, we, we use Zoom a lot. Most of my consults are Zoom or telephone. I try to try to get clients to choose Zoom, although there's a lot of Zoom fatigue these days.
Yep.
So sometimes it doesn't always happen. Um, we use Smokeball as our practice management, and we do use we also use Lawmatics for intake and for marketing, which is really great because I can set a lot of automations and it will send out, we have a whole email series when someone expresses interest in estate planning, and once they've had an appointment, we can send out our fee agreements, and there's a lot of things that happen automatically, which is really nice.
I know it feels like technology is just constantly evolving there, and it can be a little overwhelming at times, right?
It's incredibly overwhelming, and the thing that I've learned about all of these different programs is none of them are right, none of them are perfect. You just have to focus on picking the best tool for the task that you're trying to accomplish. All these tools want to be all-in-one tools, but it's really hard to find something that's truly an all-in-one tool that's good at everything that you want it to be good at.
Yeah, it feels like you have to use all sorts of different technologies just to get to the sweet spot there.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
So now we've heard a lot from you, but I want to know, who are you? Take me back in time here, all the way to Little Russell. Take me way back here.
So I grew up Long Island, New York, Suffolk County. Graduated high school. And I went to college, Brandeis University, outside of Boston. Boston is a great place. I honestly never thought I'd leave. After college, I was a politics and history major, which I always said qualified me really to do one thing, which was to get more schooling. And took some time off. I worked for a public health nonprofit based out of Boston Medical Center, and I lived in Boston for a year, which was a really neat experience. And then went to law school, and lost my humanity, as I talked about before.
I still think you're a great person, so I think you got your humanity.
Thank you. And that's where I met my wife, and she's also an attorney, and her father was an attorney. He had a practice in Pennsylvania, which is where we ended up settling. And I've been working. I started working with her. I initially started before we moved to Pennsylvania, I was a law clerk in Bennington, Vermont, so Southwest Vermont. And then we moved to Pennsylvania. I worked for the district attorney's office, and then went into practice with my father-in-law, and then my wife joined us, and then at this point it's just me. I'm the only full-time lawyer with the firm. My wife stopped working when the pandemic hit, and now she's working for one of our newly elected judges in our courthouse. And my father-in-law had left in 2014 as he was appointed to serve as a judge.
No, that's great. And what are
Yeah.
some things that outside of work? What are you passionate about?
Well, I'm I have 3 children, and I'm very passionate about them. And then our fur baby we have a mini schnauzer, and we got him shortly after we got married. So now he's gotten a little old. He has diabetes, and I feel like, I'm very passionate about making sure that he gets the treatments that he needs. So I do a lot. And I said I have 3 kids, so whatever hobbies I used to have are sort of put on the back burner. But I am a big baseball fan, and pre-pandemic would try to get to games whenever I could.
Well, now that since you're in Pennsylvania, does that make you a Pittsburgh Pirates fan for baseball, or do you still have the Red Sox from being in Boston?
So I am actually a New York Mets fan because I
Ooh.
grew up as a Mets fan. My my number two is the Red Sox because when I lived in in the Boston area, it was right as they were breaking the curse. So it was like the 2003 2004 era, and you just and I lived where I lived in Boston was right near Fenway, so it was a great time to be be in that area.
Oh, it's the city of champions. You can't complain with that. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in school there, when I was in Boston, it was uh not too long ago, but I remember being there for the 2018, I think it was championship for the Red Sox, and that was just a blast.
Mhm.
Being in that whole area is a lot of fun. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
a great experience. But now that I know that you're not a Red Sox fan, it makes it a little more challenging there. So
Well, I have two words for you, Bill Buckner.
oh,
But that's probably before your time.
yeah. At least you're not a Yankees fan, so we can still have that. We can still have that in common.
I you no, I am most certainly not a Yankees fan.
I mean, this has been such a great conversation, Russell. And where can people connect with you?
Sure. So you can always connect with me on my on our website, which is antanavagefarbiarz.com. We're on social media, so if you can follow us on Facebook as well as on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and or you can email me, which is rfarbiarz rfarbiarz at afalawfirm.com.
Well, Russell, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with me.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, and I want to thank the listeners as well. If you learned a lot from this episode, and I know I did, I mean, I got 2 pages of notes front and back here. So I learned a lot. I know you did. So if you learned something, share this episode. And that's great. This has been another great episode of Solo De Facto, and I will catch you next time.
Thank you for joining us for today's show. For more information, visit our site at solodefacto.com. And remember, smash that like and subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Solo De Facto is sponsored by Back Office Betties, trusted virtual legal receptionist, helping you grow your firm one call, one chat, one new client at a time. To discover how they can help you grow your firm, head on over to backofficebetties.com and mention the Solo De Facto show for an exclusive listener offer.